Hello, YouTube. Happy National Coffee Day. Today, September 29th, 2018, it is International Coffee Day, and I've got coffee with me. Gonna have some. Gonna have a bit of a coffee stream. Whoever's coming in to watch this, thank you. And I'm gonna get started right now. Be sure if you would like to become a Patreon of the GeoScholar, I'm going to put a link in the description. I'm going to put a link in the chat right now. If you would like to become a Oh, Lauren, the ginger me, thank you for coming in. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know it was International Hockey Day. I might do a video about hockey sometime, but coffee is always good. Anyone that's watching, if you want to become a Patreon, there's the link. If you would like to donate personally, if you want to donate directly, oh, awesome. That can only be a good thing. Thank you for noticing. Donate. There's my PayPal. If you want to donate, I've got PayPal right there too. So I want to get started about coffee. And, coffee, I love coffee. I like having a good cup of coffee. It tastes great. I actually got to be at work pretty soon. So it's fitting that I've got Matt behind me, coffee right here. My favorite coffee depends on what I'm in the mood in. I love espresso coffee. Espresso coffee is just, it tastes really, I like that strong taste of espresso coffee. And I like all the different things that I can do with espresso coffee. And, I love espresso. I like to make, cafe cubano. I like to take the espresso and make cafe au lait with it. Oh, we got a second person coming in. Second person who just came into the stream, identify yourself. Say something in the chat. Let us know who you are. Thank you for coming in and watching. But, and if you want to follow me on Twitter, there's my Twitter. Well, I wouldn't consider myself a fancy coffee drinker, but I do love I love, I could get used to the fancy coffees. But one of the things you have to understand about just coffee in general, one of the first things, coffee, coffee, a lot of people around the world love this drink. You don't like coffee? When I was a kid, I didn't like coffee very much, but as I got older, I started to acquire a taste for it, and it becomes a necessity in many cases. But, I've grown to love the taste of coffee. It tastes pretty good. But, again, espresso, yes. Sonia, thank you for joining the chat. Thank you. Espresso is good. I love espresso. I drink it. I try to buy that stuff whenever I can. Good coffee. It's very versatile. You can do a lot of things with it. Very good coffee. And one important thing to understand about coffee. Actually, Lauren, I'm going to tell you about the geography of coffee. You're at the bowling alley. Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm going to talk about the geography of coffee. This is going to be Organic, organic is always good. Yes, geography plays a very big part in coffee, and I'm about to get into that right now. You know, one of the things that a lot of people don't think about, and it should make some sense, especially when you go into a lot of coffee shops and they talk about certain roasts from certain countries like Guatemala or Costa Rica or Kenya, Rwanda, or Ethiopia. It should make a lot of sense. Geography, you know, geography is in the details, and to understand geography of coffee, you have to understand that it's in the details. There's a little bit of details in there. You have certain soil types, certain climate types, you have certain microclimates. Think of coffee like you do about wine. When you think of wine, and they talk about the certain viticultural areas, and they talk about certain places wine where wine is very prevalent and where it grows and the different soil types, different conditions, not just the general climate of that area, but like little specific conditions in every little area. You go to one area, this little small area, they grow a certain type of coffee, wine, and then you move over about a mile or two. You have some different conditions, similar but different, and it creates like a different kind of wine. And think of coffee that way. You have to look at sort of the different climates, the different conditions. But generally, when it comes to geography, there is a certain range that you find coffee. Generally, you find it in the tropics. You generally find it in the tropic areas. You find it in areas like Colombia, Brazil. You find it in Ethiopia. You find it here in Kenya and Tanzania. You find it around places like Indonesia, grows in Vietnam. You know, you find it around the areas that are like between they're generally an area between like the very tropical areas going towards like the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn. That's sort of like your area where you find your biggest production of coffee. And obviously, you look at a country like Brazil. You look at Brazil. Brazil, only a small part of the country goes above the equator. Oh yeah, you got flowers coming with coffee, but you got this here with you look at Brazil. There's the equator. You look at it. Most of Brazil, Brazil is so big. Most of it's in the tropics. Yeah, I gotta. This globe. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. The Tropic of Cancer. No, does coffee grow in Australia? There are places where it's possible, but Australia is not really big into coffee like other countries nearby are. You typically are going to find more of that in like Papua New Guinea, or you're going to find it in Indonesia. But most of Australia is too dry to grow coffee. Most of it. There's like maybe one region where you can grow coffee theoretically, and that's around the Queensland region of Australia. Show you where that is. But you look. I've shown. I show you about Brazil and where that is. Well, not so much just far north Queensland, but I'm about to get more into some of the conditions that you need to grow coffee. Just hang tight. But I've shown you Brazil. I've shown you how big of a country it is and how a lot of it goes from latitudes from just slightly above the equator to all the way down past the Tropic of Cancer. No, the Tropic of Capricorn. Tropic of Capricorn. Tropic of Capricorn is right there. Tropic of Capricorn. So you got you from the equator to the Tropic of Capricorn. That's your like tropics region. And then you got some more of the tropics here. So the tropics go from Tropic of Capricorn to the Tropic of Cancer. And then, that's sort of your main coffee growing area. But you have to think about some of the conditions, and you have to think there are two main types of coffee beans. You have your Arabica and your Robusta. Your Arabica bean, the optimal growing conditions for that are going to be like, if you're in like the areas that are still kind of in the tropics, but they're further up in latitude, like, you go to parts of Brazil that are around the tropics, but they're coming close to the Tropic of Cancer, you're going to have latitudes to grow them. You got to have a latitude around 1,800 feet above sea level to 3,600 feet above sea level, because you want to have that temperature range between 60 degrees Fahrenheit to 77 degrees Fahrenheit, or around 16 to 25 degrees Celsius. And at that latitude, and for that latitude, you're going to want to be at the somewhat higher elevations, like, 1,800, 3,600 feet above sea level. And so you're going to want sort of that slightly higher altitude, because it's going to be consistently cooler than at the lower elevations. You're going to have like the constant temperature between 60 and 77 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's going to be more constant. You're going to need to find rainy seasons and dry seasons, because it will help sort of the maturation of the coffee. And the temperature range, you don't want it to get too hot, because that's not really good for the coffee. You want to have, for a good quality coffee, you want to have it sort of like ripen at the right pace. And then if you're at the equatorial regions, you're going to want to grow your coffee at much higher altitudes. You want it at a higher altitude because it's going to be cooler, obviously. Basically, around the tropics, the further away from the equator that you are, the lower your altitude you're going to want to grow your coffee. The closer you are to the equator, the higher your altitude you're going to want to grow your coffee, because you want that optimal temperature range. Robusta coffee, you can grow that at somewhat lower latitudes. Oh, that's okay. That's okay, Sonia. You're going to want to grow it at lower latitudes. No, at lower altitudes. You're going to want to grow it at lower altitudes. And with Robusta, it's more tolerant of higher temperatures. And you got to think about, coffee itself. Coffee requires that coffee requires that optimal range of temperatures and that optimal range of altitude and latitude. And so it grows in certain places. This is one major reason why Hawaii is the only American state that grows coffee, because it's the only part of the United States that has those optimal conditions. You have, up in the Kona district specifically. Oh, by the way, Hawaii is right there. You have those optimal conditions for growing coffee. And then you have other things to consider, like soil types. Places with rich volcanic soil grow coffee very well. Places like Costa Rica, Hawaii, obviously, places with volcanic soil, certain places in East Africa with the volcanic soil will grow coffee very well, the rich, fertile soil. And that's something to consider in terms of, where you get your coffee from. And I also want to talk about something else. I want to talk about culture, human geography. Certain places have certain coffee cultures. You go to Louisiana, you go to Miami, you go to New Orleans, you go to Miami. There are certain coffee cultures that are there, and you have to think about, human migrations and just the fact that you have a lot of coffee being shipped up there. And this is going to segue into another stream that I'm going to do. I've actually done a video about coffee culture in New Orleans, and once this stream is done, I'm going to put that video into the comment section of this stream. Once I end this stream, I'm going to put it in the comment section. And you can look at that. But this video, I want to make another stream, and I want to sort of this is going to segue into part 2 about, geography and coffee. I am going to end the stream here. The next coffee stream I'm going to do is going to be about the human geography aspect of coffee, specifically coffee culture. Hope you enjoyed the stream. Be sure to like and subscribe, and check out other videos on this channel. Happy National Coffee Day here in the United States of America. Cheers.